My big hot take is in 5 to 10 years, we will be living in an assistant first universe or an AI assistant first universe. Pretty much every business that does online or voice type of interactions with its customers, I think it will probably be assistant first. Yeah, in maybe 5 to 10 years.
But where's the humanity? Come on, Andy.
But
where's the humanity? Hello, and welcome to another episode of One Night in Product Hot Takes Edition, where I speak to one person about one thing, get straight to the point, and find out what's on their mind. This is the third of a three-part series of AI hot takes to share with you, so make sure you check them all out, and if you've got your own hot take, head over to onenightinproduct.com/hot and grab a time. And in any case, do remember to subscribe to the podcast on your favourite podcast app or on YouTube so you don't miss another episode. Anyway, without further ado, here's Andy Waters and his hot take. All right, so I can see in front of me a fairly blurry background with probably an echo of a bookcase, some kind of plant, and there's a gentleman in the middle of the screen, and I've never seen him before, so I'll have to ask you, gentlemen, to introduce yourself. What's your name? Where are you based? What is it you do? And more importantly, what's your hot take?
All right. Well, my name's Andy Walters. Great to meet you. Based out of Austin, Texas. I run a generative AI consultancy and development shop. So we're primarily focused on helping startups and SMBs integrate GenAI.
So you've been around for several years doing that, then, I assume?
You know what? I've been consulting for, for many years, but our agency has only been around for about 6 months. So, but we're growing, really exciting. Get into that later. But my big hot take is in 5 to 10 years, we will be living in an assistant first universe or an AI assistant first universe. So by that, I mean today, if you need to change your plane ticket, you have to call up the airline and you talk to somebody, probably not super familiar, maybe even with your language or your culture, right? You deal with all of the phone trees, et cetera, et cetera. And I just think that's going away. That's a really obvious use case. Obviously, it'd be better to talk to an AI, right? In that case, if an AI is more reliable and it's faster, you don't have to go through the phone trees and it speaks your language, whatever it is, perfectly. Wouldn't that be better from a user perspective? And then, of course, from a business perspective, wouldn't it be better if it was a cheaper agent, right? So there's just these strong incentives, I think, that businesses will have to adopt building these kind of public-facing assistants. And I think pretty much every business that does online or voice type of interactions with its customers, I think it will probably be assistant first. Yeah, in maybe 5 to 10 years.
But where's the humanity? Come on, Andy.
But
where's the humanity? Exactly.
Well,
like
that's a great question.
We're human. We're carbon-based life forms, right? We want to go. We don't want to be ruled by our silicon overlords. Like, where's the humanity?
Sure.
We're in these kind of and the connections that we can make with these people. Like, I guess the question actually, just to kind of interrupt my own question, are we making connections with these type of people when we're going to get help today? Or are we already kind of treating them like AI agents, but just human ones?
There you go. I think you answered your own question. It's like, do you really need humanity when you're talking about changing your plane ticket? Do you really need humanity when you want to know, can I add this topping to my pizza or whatever? Probably not. So I think AI can, in a way, kind of open up space for humanity when it's important. So, I don't think look, that's the first answer. The second answer is, weirdly, a lot of people seem to get some sense of, I don't know if it's humanity, but maybe companionship or something like that from AIs. You've got a huge rise in like these therapy bots. You have Hume just came out with this super empathetic sounding AI. The voice.
But just to interrupt you there,
amazing.
like that's empathetic sounding, right? Like,
yes, totally.
I don't want to jump
absolutely.
too far ahead, but
100%. Yeah, no, it is kind of shocking. I think that some people find that that therapy or kind of like simulacrum of humanity to be somehow satisfying or good enough. And I think there's a sad note in there. But then again, like, I guess who am I to judge? Like, if an AI girlfriend is better than whatever your situation is, I don't know,
But it's just that film Her, right, with Joaquin Phoenix,
Yeah.
like that whole thing, and then obviously, spoiler alert, that all kind of escalates within the film. I won't properly spoil it, but like,
Right.
but you're very much talking about kind of customer support
Business
type
transaction.
assistance at the moment. Like,
Yeah.
but do you see that then, the kind of the therapy and the girlfriends and the
Yeah.
partners that go the robot to go to the ball game with or whatever? Like, do you see that being a natural end state, and do you think that that's desirable?
Do I see? Oh, and end state. Yeah, absolutely. I think the evidence is there. Character.ai has taken off, and they're really very focused on that thesis. Seems to be doing well. So yeah, I do think it's an end state. Whether that's a desirable end state, I think deeper question. I'm not sure. I think, maybe like if I were to like reach a little bit quite far, actually, I think maybe the end state is an AI that has a self model of itself that knows it's not a human, but is somehow honest about that. And we can find some way to relate to that. Like, hey, I get it. You're not a human, but you do have some kind of model of yourself. And somehow or another, that brings me some sense of authentic connection. Maybe that's the path there. Remains to be seen, I think.
Yeah, I guess, you've got a lot of people out there. In fact, I spoke to someone this morning on the Hot Takes podcast version of the podcast, which the discussion was all about, like, well, AI is going to take all of our jobs. Now, even if we kind of row back a bit and go back to your initial thesis, like, it's definitely going to take a bunch of those people's jobs, right?
Almost certainly. Yeah.
And I guess
it'll, shall we say, displace those jobs, and perhaps they'll find better work elsewhere.
Yeah. So one argument is that, well, this may even enable other jobs. Like, if we assume that there's going to be some human in the loop element to some of the things that we have to do, that it's not all going to be 100% automated, or certainly not for the foreseeable future. And, even LLMs are being trained with humans in the loop still, right? There's still much human activity. And maybe the natural end state is that we're all just going to be sitting there plugging away, feeding the LLMs because that's the only job that's left. But there's going to be probably some interim state where people, like, if we play your vision through, then there's going to be lots of customer support people that are going to be basically out of a job, or a lot of them. They could be doing something else. Like, do you think that there is a case for AI being able to provide them with jobs that they couldn't have had before?
Yeah. Somebody asked me the other day, would you encourage, so I have a 2-year-old son. They said, would you encourage your 2-year-old to go into software? And, assuming they were interested in doing that when the time came. And at first it really took me back because, 5 years ago, I would have said, oh, absolutely. If they really like it, and it's great, tech's a great field, great place to be. But you see these things coming out like Devin, the automated software engineer. And it really kind of threw me for a loop. I was thinking about it for weeks. Like, would I? But the conclusion I've recently come to is, rather than thinking about a picture of kind of AI versus humans, I think it's probably more accurate to think about a synthesis between the two as kind of AI plus human, or human plus AI, and to think about the effectiveness of a human as being augmented by an AI. And so then in that kind of a world, you can still, like the customer service agent, instead of managing, whatever it is, I don't know, 50 calls a day, they're in charge of whatever, 5,000 calls a day or something like that. It just makes them enormously more productive. You probably still need a human in the loop. We're talking about humanity, somebody who does have a model of what it means to be human. That's still valuable. But there will just be an opportunity to do a lot more using AI. So I think that synthesis approach is probably right. So the answer to to the question they asked would be like, yeah, I think I would encourage my son to go into that. But even more than that, to learn AI and to be able to work with it extremely well. I think that's where the value will be.
But you've talked obviously so far about, for example, we keep coming back to it, but like the call centers and all of those people that are
Yeah.
going to be maybe first on the chopping block, if we can call
Yeah.
it that. Now, I worked in a call center for a couple of years early on in my career, and I definitely have mixed emotions about call centers. They're not the best places to work, frankly. Like they're
Yeah.
pretty dehumanizing places at the best
Bit
of
of a
times.
sweatshop.
Well, yeah, and I don't imagine that's got any better since I did it, 20 years ago or whatever. But that's just, to some extent, is that just like the pointy end of the spear? Like there's going to be other things, other jobs, other functions that are going to start to be at risk. Like, what do you think the next most likely functions or jobs or roles are going to be that maybe start to look a bit vulnerable to this sort of thing?
Healthcare and education, I think, are probably two of the biggest ones. Yeah, you're right. I think customer service is kind of an obvious tip of the spear. You also have like banking is in that mix as well. But yeah, I think once you get through customer service and kind of the retail banking stuff, it is, I think you can imagine in healthcare, NVIDIA has already been working with a company called, I think it's called Hippocratic AI, to develop a remote nurse that has been shown to be more effective at least certain kinds of tasks than a human nurse and is $9 an hour to run. Now that's the worst that's ever going to be. That's the highest price and the worst performance it's ever going to be. It's only going to get better and cheaper, right? So it's hard to imagine that, if you've got a 24-hour nurse hotline business, right? Like, how is that not going to be quite automatable? So I think that's a possibility, but you can go all the way up to, eventually an AI doctor. I don't think that's anytime soon. But then you've got, other industries as well. Consulting, you can imagine a lot of that beginning to be automated, at least at the lower levels. Legal, certainly a lot of paralegal type of tasks, are pretty vulnerable. So I do think it's a massive shift. I think the question is, how quickly will it happen? And is it going to be incremental? The Zuckerbergs of the world are pretty convinced it'll be incremental, and let's hope they're right, because I think that gives us the opportunity to kind of softly transition a lot of people. But if it's more I think probably Sam Altman's kind of worst fear, and it is a rapid takeoff, I think we're in a different situation.
And how does one, in your opinion, I mean, you're GenAI consultant, you go out and you advise people on this stuff. You've obviously jumped deep into the swim pool, and you've sort of, you've kind of, you're living and breathing all of this stuff now. So like, in your opinion, like, how do we control, or can we control against that scenario too, where all of a sudden everything changes like that? Right.
That's a great question. I don't think there is much we can do to stop it. And I know that sounds maybe a bit powerless, but what are the options?
Turn it off.
Well, right. So, but is that really an option, right? Because you've got China competing, right? So like, they're not going to turn it off. You've got I know you're in Europe, so obviously Europe is kind of headed that direction. Let's put some more regulations, some brakes on things. Doesn't look like looks like the US is probably just paying lip service to a lot of that. I doubt there will be meaningful breaks put on the progress. And there's just an enormous incentive for companies to exploit this new strategy, which is cheaper, faster human intelligence anyway. So that incentive's not going away. I think it would be difficult to stop it with regulation. What are your other options? I just don't see any great other options. I think we are probably helped by the fact that these things do take time. I think the rollout so far has been, certainly hasn't been as fast as some of the doomers thought it would be. We've gotten models that are now fully open source that doomers thought, oh, if that's open source, it's all going to go to hell. It turns out like it's basically fine. So I think the picture is more incremental than the hype would perhaps suggest. But I frankly, I just don't see that many great options to slow it down.
Well, at least we've got people like you there trying to help us do it properly rather than just, throwing all caution to the wall. But, if, our time obviously now is coming to an end. So if people do want to talk to you about their Gen AI projects or just generally catch up with you and try and work out which little underground bunker that they're going to try and find and share with you, like, where can they come and find you after this?
Yeah. So I'm on Twitter at Andy Walters. And you can find my firm. It's called Emerge Haus. That's HAUS. Emerge.haus is our web address. So yeah, it was great speaking.
No, absolutely. And I think, it's always good to explore some of our greatest fears together. But I'm hoping that, between us, what we can do is, paint a picture that, maybe it's going to be okay. And if it's not, at least we'll have some really interesting conversations with chatbots on the way out, right? So
yeah, absolutely.
All I can do for now is thank you very much for making me feel worse for the rest of the day. And thank you for your hot take.
Thank you.